The teleportation chamber pulsed with energy, arcs of teal lightning dancing along the metallic walls. Every fiber of Jara Quinn's body vibrated with anticipation and terror. She had trained for this moment her entire life, yet nothing could truly prepare a human for first contact with the Galactic Academy's renowned trial of worlds. A hiss of ionized gas filled her lungs as the chamber door swung open. Light hit her eyes like a solar flare, and for a moment Jara couldn't tell up from down. The floor beneath her rippled, though it remained solid, and the gravity seemed inconsistent. Floating slightly, she staggered toward the nearest railing, clutching the reinforced pack strapped across her chest. "Welcome, human," a voice intoned. Deep, resonant, with a timbre that suggested sound wasn't its only medium. Jara blinked past the glare to see a creature of astonishing geometry. 3 torsos stacked vertically, each supporting a set of limbs that defied symmetry, and a head with eyes orbiting in perfect concentric circles. Its skin shimmered with a metallic translucence that revealed the pulse of electric blue veins. "I am Administrator Kale," it said, stepping back as a faint force field hummed between them. "Your arrival is historic. Few humans survive even the preliminary scans." Jara swallowed. I'll do my best." She gritted her teeth, remembering the drills back on Earth. The freezing nights of the Siberian tundra, the deserts of Nevada, the storms in the Rockies. They had taught her endurance. She just hoped that would be enough. Kale's torso swiveled simultaneously. "Follow me. And stay within the designated zones. The Academy is unpredictable for species from unstable biospheres." The corridors twisted unnaturally, floors folding like origami and walls shifting with a silent intelligence. Other students floated in transparent spheres, gliding above the floor. Some slithered along walls that seemed to breathe. A few didn't appear fully three-dimensional, phasing in and out of the visible spectrum. Jara's stomach lurched. "Focus," she muttered, pressing her palms against the smooth surface of the corridor. The force field tingled under her touch, almost sentient, as if testing her resilience. At the end of the hall, Kale stopped. A door materialized from thin air, shimmering like liquid mercury. "This is your quarters," it said. "Temporary accommodations. Adjust as needed for your unique physiology." Jara stepped inside. Half the room resembled an Earth dormitory, bed, desk, storage, but the other half contained equipment for beings that could survive in extreme heat, vacuum, or high radiation. Hanging hammocks formed a lattice of glowing filaments. Floating pods drifted in midair, some filled with liquids that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. And then she saw her roommate. A 6-limbed creature with iridescent exoskeletons that refracted the chamber's light in rainbows. Its compound eyes expanded in horror as it scanned her. You are from Earth?" it hissed. "Yes," Jara said cautiously. "Is that a problem?" The roommate's limbs twitched, antennae quivering like panic signals. "No one from a Deathworld has ever roomed here. You are hazardous." Jara froze. "Hazardous?" "Yes. Class 5 Deathworld. Humans leak pathogens, consume toxins voluntarily, and survive conditions that would annihilate most species in hours." Jara looked down at her clean hands, rubbed them together. Not dangerous." The roommate backed away, packing its personal items into a levitating case. "I will submit a transfer request. No offense." Its voice buzzed in alarm. "I value being alive." And just like that it was gone, leaving Jara stunned and oddly proud. Humans were deadly, even if unintentionally. Kale's 3 torsos regarded her. "Earth is remarkable. The Academy's predictive models did not anticipate a human's resilience. Your presence will require adjustments." The next morning, Jara faced her first class, Xenobiology of Extreme Worlds. The amphitheater resembled a cross between a holographic aquarium and a floating labyrinth. At its center hovered a translucent sphere containing what appeared to be a living mass of pulsating tentacles suspended in cerulean gel. "Welcome," a voice echoed from the sphere. "I am Professor Vrixel. Today we study species adapted to environments that would annihilate the average galactic citizen. Earth in particular is instructive." A hologram flickered to life. Deserts that could boil flesh, frozen tundras that could crack bone, oceans crushing creatures under tons of pressure, and forests dense with predators capable of hunting anything with a heartbeat. Vrixel's tentacles rippled. Yet humans survive. Not by brute strength alone, but through ingenuity, endurance, and adaptability. All eyes turned to Jara. The room was silent. Some recoiled slightly, others stared with wide, luminescent eyes. She felt a familiar rush, embarrassment, anger, and defiance mingling in her chest. Vrixel continued, "The average human can withstand temperature swings that would kill most species, sustain blood loss, fracture bones, and continue functioning, and ingest compounds that would be lethal for most sapients. Adaptation through adversity is their primary trait." One student fainted outright. Another slithered backward, antennae quivering. Jara clenched her fists. "Who here has experienced extreme Earth conditions personally?" Vrixel asked. Jara raised her hand. "I've climbed peaks in Alaska where frostbite can set in minutes. Swum in freezing rivers. Walked through deserts in temperatures exceeding 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Survived tornadoes and thunderstorms that could tear apart entire towns." A murmur swept through the room. The aliens couldn't fathom the human capacity for self-imposed hazard. "You do not merely survive," Vrixel said, "you thrive. Your species' evolutionary pressures have produced cognitive and physical adaptability that the Academy must now account for." After class, a small, furry alien approached her. Its oversized eyes reflected genuine curiosity rather than fear. "I am Lyran," it said. "I study extreme worlds. Tell me, is it true humans endure poisons for pleasure?" "Yes," Jara said with a grin. "We call it spice. Sometimes alcohol too, but it's mostly culinary tradition." Lyran's whiskers twitched in amazement. "Fascinating. You must come on our field excursion. We explore Lunara 9. Dangerous but nothing like Earth, yet your species would excel." Jara felt a flicker of connection. Someone who wasn't afraid, someone intrigued rather than horrified. For the first time since arriving, she felt less like a specimen and more like a human, remarkable, dangerous, extraordinary, and alive. The journey to Lunara 9 would begin in 2 days, and Jara Quinn, the Earth human, would face challenges that no model had predicted, with allies who still needed convincing that a Deathworlder could lead, survive, and thrive. And she intended to prove them all wrong. The transport chamber thrummed with energy, vibrating through Jara's bones as the luminescent walls shifted around her. She gripped the railing, her knuckles white, heart hammering, but not from fear. Anticipation coursed through her veins. Earth had trained her for extremes. Lunara 9? She could handle that. Lyran floated beside her, whiskers quivering with excitement. "You are insane. Lunara 9 is Class 4 hazardous. Even the native scouts avoid it." Jara smirked. "Then it'll be a good test." The chamber's light flared white, then dimmed. When it receded, Jara felt the shift in gravity immediately. Lunara 9 wasn't just extreme, it was unrelenting. Jagged mountains of black crystalline rock jutted from the ground, reflecting harsh sunlight into blinding streaks. Rivers of molten metal slithered between peaks, and geysers erupted sporadically, hurling clouds of acidic vapor into the sky. The air shimmered with heat distortion, carrying the acrid tang of sulfur and ozone. Other students hesitated at the edge of the landing platform, some clinging to hoverpods. Tentacle-like limbs quivered. Lyran's fur bristled in awe. Jara, however, felt the familiar thrill of danger. This was a playground compared to her survival drills on Earth's Deathworlds. "Your mission," Vrixel's voice resonated through the telepathic comms, "is to navigate Lunara 9's terrain and retrieve the core sample from the crystal spire. Caution, several native predators are active. Only those who reach the spire intact will pass the exercise." A chorus of panicked shrieks erupted. Jara ignored them. The first obstacle came immediately. A field of black crystal shards, sharp as razors, covered the ground for miles. The heat radiated off the stones, warping the air above them. Most aliens shrank back. Jara, however, surveyed the terrain. She removed her pack, revealing Earth-standard survival boots reinforced with alloy plates. Stepping carefully, she used the tip of each boot to test crystal placement. Each careful step produced sparks as metal met mineral. Her endurance and precision allowed her to move quickly, her balance honed from years of rock climbing and storm survival. "Impressive," Lyran whispered, floating behind her. "I've never seen a sapient traverse this without protective pods." Jara only grinned. "You'll get used to it." Next came the predators. Lunara 9's native species resembled massive serpents with crystalline spines along their backs, eyes glowing amber. They glided along molten rivers, emerging with a hiss that sounded like metal tearing. Students panicked. Many floated in protective spheres. A few had already been forced to retreat. Jara crouched low, observing. She noticed a pattern. The serpents hunted in tandem, using thermal trails to track heat signatures. Using a small mirror from her pack, she reflected sunlight onto a nearby molten patch, creating a blinding glare that disrupted the serpent's vision. The serpents hissed and recoiled, allowing her to slip past undetected. Lyran's whiskers twitched in admiration. You manipulate the environment, like a predator. Humans learn to survive by turning threats into tools, Jara said, adjusting her grip on her climbing pole. Hours passed. The sun shifted, the temperature fluctuating wildly. Alien students began faltering, some retreating into protective spheres or calling for extraction. Jara pushed onward, muscles burning, lungs screaming, yet every step reinforced the truth: humans endure. Finally, the crystal spire came into view. It rose like a jagged tower of obsidian glass, twisting hundreds of meters into the sky. Its surface was impossibly slick, reflecting the molten rivers below like a mirror. At its apex pulsed a core of pure luminescent energy, the sample they needed. The climb began. Other species abandoned the attempt immediately. The spire's smooth angles and sharp edges were a nightmare. Yet Jara found footholds in microscopic cracks, using not only strength but intuition honed from Deathworld survival. Her muscles burned, her fingers bled slightly on jagged edges. But she climbed. Humans adapted to pain. Humans thrived in conditions that would kill any other species. Halfway up, a tremor shook the spire. Sections of crystal fractured and slid downward like avalanches of glass. Jara leapt, dodged and recalibrated her grip midair. Another tremor followed. Sweat stung her eyes and her body screamed for relief, but she pressed onward. From above, Vrixel's voice echoed, "Human, your survival metrics exceed 99.9% of all tested species. Incredible." Finally she reached the apex. The core pulsed with energy nearly blinding. Jara removed a containment device from her pack, an Earth-engineered extraction chamber designed to withstand extreme heat, pressure, and radiation. She carefully encased the energy pulse, stabilizing it with magnetic fields. As she descended, a shadow fell over the spire. A massive predator, larger than any serpent, with crystalline wings that reflected light like a prism, swooped toward her. It lunged. Reflexively, Jara dropped, using her pack as a counterweight to swing around a jagged outcrop. The predator crashed into the cliffside, stunned by her unexpected maneuver. Other species watched in awe. Lyran gasped. "You survived the apex predator, without pots, without weapons." Jara's legs trembled, her hands bloodied, but she grinned. "Humans survive because we adapt. That's the difference." By nightfall, Jara returned to the landing platform with the core intact. Exhausted, scorched, and bleeding, she stood tall, defiance radiating from her every pore. Vrixel's voice echoed, a rare note of approval. "You have done what no other species could." Lunara 9 was meant to break the Academy students. Yet, a human has not only survived but outperformed expectations. This is unprecedented. The other students whispered among themselves. Some avoided her gaze, some stared openly, eyes wide with admiration or fear. Jara realized something remarkable. The fear and doubt they had held against humans were shattered in one day. Lyran floated beside her. You are extraordinary. Not like any sapien I've encountered. Humans, you redefine what survival means." Jara chuckled softly, wiping molten residue from her arm. "Earth trains us for extremes. The galaxy hasn't caught up yet." That night, back in her quarters, Jara lay staring at the ceiling. Her hands ached, her body screamed, but a fire burned in her chest. This was only the beginning. The Academy, the galaxy, even death itself, humans had a way of surprising the universe. And she intended to keep proving it. The Academy's observation deck buzzed with activity. Alien instructors and students crowded the glass-paneled chambers, their multifaceted eyes fixed on the monitors displaying Jara's return from Lunara 9. Few had ever witnessed a human navigate such a death world and survive intact. Even fewer had done it with the grace and ingenuity Jara had shown. Vrixel's antennae twitched nervously. The metrics are off the charts. There is no recorded species capable of this level of adaptation. Yet a single human has completed the mission flawlessly. Lyran hovered nearby, whispering, "Every species thought humans were fragile. Now they're, I don't know, terrifyingly capable." Jara, wrapped in a thermal recovery blanket, watched the reactions with detached amusement. She had survived environments that made seasoned aliens retreat, yet her peers still clung to disbelief. The galaxy had underestimated humans for millennia. That was about to change. The next morning, the Academy convened an emergency assembly. Students gathered in the amphitheater, a colossal dome that resonated with Vrixel's telepathic broadcast. "Today, Vrixel announced, "We have witnessed a demonstration of human resilience that challenges all prior understanding of survival, adaptation, and strategy. This is unprecedented." Whispers rippled across the room. Many species still struggled to comprehend how one human had bested what they called insurmountable threats. Jara stood at the center of the arena, the crowd pressing their gaze upon her. She didn't shrink. Humans had never shrunk before threats. They met them, faced them, and often walked away stronger. "Your species is extraordinary," a Sephir instructor admitted, antennae quivering with what could only be interpreted as awe. "No simulations predicted this. Your actions defy every calculation." A ripple of murmurs ran through the alien audience. Some eyes widened in respect, others in fear. The underlying truth was undeniable. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and humans were beginning to rewrite those expectations. Lyran floated to her side. "The core sample exercise. You didn't just survive. You changed how everyone sees you." Jara's fingers flexed, still sore from the climb. "We don't survive by being average. We survive by thinking, adapting, and refusing to quit. That's the difference." But the Academy had more than admiration in store. The very next simulation was announced, the Gauntlet of Eternity. "It is a test of not just survival but leadership and strategy," Vrixel explained. "All students will face it. The terrain, the predators, the environment, all variables are unpredictable. Only those who lead their teams successfully through the gauntlet will earn the highest honors." Jara smiled. Finally, an opportunity to prove not just herself but humanity. The gauntlet was unlike anything she had faced. An artificial planet designed to simulate the deadliest biomes in the galaxy, constantly shifting with predators, environmental hazards, and sabotage mechanisms randomly activated. The aliens relied on brute strength, defensive tech, or telepathic shields. Humans relied on creativity. Her team was small. Lyran, a four-armed Sephir named Triv, and a few nervous alien students who had witnessed her Lunara 9 feat. Their initial strategy sessions were chaotic. Alien species argued over protocols, equipment, and tactics, each convinced their method was superior. Jara listened quietly. Then she acted. "Rules don't survive this planet," she said firmly. "Predict what it will do. Adapt faster than it can respond. We use the environment, not fight it." Some scoffed. Others, desperate, followed. The first challenge was the forest of echoing shadows. The trees themselves were predators, sensing movement and releasing paralyzing spores toward any living creature that made a mistake. Alien students froze in fear, their instincts telling them to remain still. Jara studied the patterns. The spores follow rhythmic pulses. Step with the rhythm of the wind and shadows. Move like the planet moves. Slow, steady, predictable, not reactive. Using this approach, the humans and those who followed her survived the forest untouched. Lyran muttered, astonished, "You're not just surviving, you're predicting the gauntlet." Next was the river of molten mirrors, a torrent of molten liquid flowing unpredictably with shifting currents of heat. Aliens panicked, their hover pods useless in the shifting flow. Jara stripped off protective exosuits, calculating angles. She launched floating debris into the current, creating stepping stones. Step by step, she led her team across, adjusting in real time as currents shifted. By now, murmurs of disbelief had turned into awe. Every species that had once laughed at humans' supposed fragility now followed cautiously, studying every move. The final stage was the Chamber of Temporal Storms, a massive dome where time itself fluctuated unpredictably. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes collapsed into milliseconds. Most species failed almost immediately, unable to cope with the distorted perception. Jara closed her eyes, focusing inward. Humans had an edge here. Instinct, intuition, and the ability to make quick decisions under extreme stress. She guided her team through by splitting responsibilities. One member calculated relative motion, another monitored environmental shifts, while Jara moved with precise, deliberate steps, anticipating the anomalies. When they reached the exit, all other teams had failed. The audience, both virtual and physical, erupted in astonishment. A human had not only survived the gauntlet, but led a team through unscathed while demonstrating strategy, intelligence, and adaptability far beyond any other species. Vrixel's voice trembled with awe. "It seems, humanity does not merely survive. Humanity dominates in conditions designed to eliminate every other species. We underestimated you, severely." Jara wiped sweat from her brow. "You shouldn't underestimate anyone," she said simply. "Especially humans." Whispers ran through the assembly. Alien students who had once mocked humans now approached cautiously, eyes wide with respect. The lesson was clear: humans were no longer to be measured against known metrics. They were a new standard. Lyran floated next to her, eyes shimmering. You've done more than survive. You've shattered their perceptions. They can't unsee what you've shown them. Jara nodded, a rare smile crossing her face. Humanity had begun its long climb, not just to survive the galaxy but to redefine it. But deep in the shadows of the academy, a figure observed. A tall, cloaked alien with eyes that reflected cold calculation. They had not spoken. They had not moved. Yet every action of Jara's was noted. Every survival, every tactic, every improvisation. The figure whispered into the comm channel only they could access. So, the humans awaken. Interesting. Jara had won the gauntlet. The galaxy had begun to notice. But the true test, the one that would challenge every instinct, every strategy, every human advantage, was yet to come. And the shadows watching the academy hinted that this test would not come from the environment or predators, but from a cunning intelligence that viewed humanity as the ultimate anomaly. The academy had quieted after the gauntlet of eternity. Jara's victory still echoed through its vast corridors. Alien instructors whispered, students stared, and the media feeds across the galaxy were ablaze with the tale of the human who led a team through the deadliest simulation ever created. But in the shadows, unseen by all, someone, or something, watched with patient calculation. The cloaked figure from the previous observation had returned, more than curious now. Every human movement, every decision had been recorded, analyzed and stored in a mental database that no one could access, except them. The next morning the academy called an unusual assembly. Vrixel's voice carried a rare tension. We have received a transmission from the Galactic Overseers. A direct challenge has been issued to the academy. The audience froze. The Galactic Overseers were not known for direct contact unless there was a matter of extreme importance, or danger. The Overseers have requested a representative species to participate in an evaluation of skill, strategy, and adaptability. Failure is not an option, Vrixel continued. Given recent events, the human Jara has been nominated. A stunned silence swept through the amphitheater. Nomination? Humans had never been singled out for such high-level scrutiny. Never. This was a privilege, and a threat. Jara stepped forward calmly. I accept. Whatever test they set, we'll adapt. We don't survive by shrinking from challenges. Lyran's voice trembled slightly. This isn't just a test, Jara. These Overseers, they don't lose. If they want to challenge a species, it could mean the end of one. Jara's gaze was steady. Then they'll learn what humans do when faced with the impossible. The location of the evaluation was revealed only days later. Sector X-91, a previously unexplored region of the galaxy known for its volatile stellar formations and high-density gravity anomalies. Few ships had survived there. Even fewer species had returned with reports intact. Jara's transport ship, the Intrepid Horizon, descended through thick layers of magnetic storms and pulsating asteroid fields. Sensors went haywire. Communications were disrupted, and the crew relied entirely on human ingenuity to navigate. This region, it's alive, muttered Triv, the Zephyr teammate. The anomaly seemed to react to us, to our presence. Jara scanned the readings. Not alive, adaptive. It's like the environment itself is testing us. Humans had faced Deathworlds before, but this was something new. The gauntlet had been predictable in its unpredictability. This was alive in a sense that no human or alien had ever encountered. The first phase of the Overseer's test was survival in the gravity maelstrom, a zone where planets, moons, and stellar debris twisted around one another in chaotic orbits. Sensors failed constantly, and gravitational fields shifted in ways that defied physics as known to most species. Aliens panicked immediately. Ships collided. Teams were forced to retreat. Jara, however, calmly adjusted the Intrepid Horizon's thrusters, calculating trajectories by instinct honed over years of exploration and survival. Gravity isn't your enemy, she explained. It's information. Use its pull to anticipate movement, to flow with the storm, not fight it. Her team followed precisely. They maneuvered through spinning debris, slingshotting around rogue moons, narrowly avoiding collisions that would have destroyed lesser ships. By the time they reached the edge of the maelstrom, every other team had been lost. Vrixel's hollow feed crackled in her cabin. Remarkable. The human defies not just challenge but comprehension. You survive because you see what others cannot. Jara didn't respond. Survival wasn't about admiration, it was about observation and execution. The next phase was more insidious. The psychic labyrinth, an artificial construct that targeted fear, doubt, and memory. Alien species with strong telepathy were often paralyzed, reliving their worst failures repeatedly. Humans, lacking innate telepathy, were forced to navigate through willpower, logic, and instinct. At first, the labyrinth attacked with visions. Friends trapped in burning fields, team members fading into darkness, failure magnified to unbearable extremes. Most species collapsed instantly. Jera's hands gripped the controls of the portable device she carried, one that could project environmental feedback directly into the mind as tactile signals. Focus on what you can control, not what the labyrinth wants you to feel. Step by step, the team moved forward. Aliens who had doubted her before now followed with unwavering faith, their survival dependent on human leadership. Every trick the labyrinth tried, illusion, fear, impossible choices, was met with calm calculation. Humans had a peculiar ability. When cornered by uncertainty, they improvised with creativity, often succeeding where logic alone would fail. By the time they emerged, the labyrinth had been outmaneuvered, not with force, but with ingenuity and persistence. Jara had rewritten the rules once again. The final stage was announced with no warning, the Overseer's challenge, a confrontation not with an environment or puzzle, but with a sentient adversary. The cloaked figure from the shadows appeared within the arena, stepping into the open for the first time. Its form was humanoid but elongated, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal and eyes that could pierce the mind. It spoke, its voice echoing in the team's heads simultaneously. Human, you have survived the trials of adaptation, strategy, and willpower. But this is the test of evolution. Can your species evolve in an instant, in response to a mind that anticipates every move? Jar didn't flinch. We don't just adapt. We evolve by understanding, observing, and acting. That's what humans do. And we never stop. The Overseer attacked, not with physical force, but by projecting scenarios, probabilities, and calculations into the human mind, trying to predict every reaction, every decision. Most species would have frozen. Most would have conceded before the first round was complete. Jera's mind raced. Every choice the Overseer predicted, she countered with unpredictability, layering instinct with improvisation. She used deception, misdirection, and risk in ways no species could anticipate. The adversary recoiled slightly at her unpredictability. Lyran gasped. No one has ever done this. You're rewriting its calculations in real time. Jara smiled faintly. They've underestimated humans for too long. Hours passed. Neither side yielded. Then Jera's final move. She forced the Overseer to respond to multiple simultaneous contradictions, exploiting a blind spot in its logic, a flaw only a human mind could identify in a being so alien. The Overseer faltered. In a final surge, she led her team in a coordinated sequence of moves that simultaneously neutralized its offensive projections, stabilized their environment, and exposed the Overseer's strategic weaknesses. The being stepped back, acknowledging defeat. You have surpassed expectations, it admitted. Not because of strength or power, but because of evolution in action. Humans, you are a species to be feared and respected. The team stood silently. Humans had done more than survive. They had demonstrated an entirely new level of galactic competence. Vrixel's broadcast vibrated through the ship. The Overseers themselves recognized the human standard. This changes everything. Jara, exhausted but unbowed, looked at her team. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The galaxy now knows, humans adapt, humans evolve, and humans endure. Nothing can stop that. But as the crew celebrated, Jera's gaze drifted to the void outside the observation windows. Somewhere beyond the stars, other challenges were forming. The shadow of intelligence, cunning, and observation that had tested them today would not be the last. Humanity's path through the galaxy would be long and dangerous. And Jara knew one truth. The galaxy may fear them, may doubt them, but humans would always rise, always adapt, and always endure. The shadows watching from the distance whispered among themselves, "This is only the beginning." If a single human can challenge the Overseers, what happens when an entire species awakens? The galaxy had changed. Humans had awakened. And nothing, not predator, not storm, not intelligence, would ever view them the same again. The galaxy had taken notice. Jera's triumph over the Overseer's trial had spread like a supernova through every quadrant. Messages poured in from distant star systems, from species that had never dared challenge humanity to those that had quietly monitored humans from the shadows. All were curious or cautious. But for Jara and the crew of the intrepid Horizon, there was no time to revel in fame. The recognition came with responsibility and danger. Intelligence networks had begun monitoring their movements, and unknown fleets were reportedly gathering near uncharted systems. Some were drawn by curiosity, others by ambition, and some by fear. The Academy convened an emergency council. Vrixel's hologram flickered with urgency. The overseers have endorsed your species as a standard of adaptability. But this has created instability. Certain factions in the galaxy now perceive humans as a threat to their dominance. You must lead the response. Jara's jaw tightened. Then we show them what humans do when challenged. We don't wait. We adapt, we evolve, and we strike when necessary, but wisely. Lyran's fingers hovered nervously over her console. You mean, preemptive action? Isn't that dangerous? Dangerous? Yes, Jara replied. But inaction is deadlier. Humans don't wait for the storm, they navigate it and make it theirs. Their first encounter came sooner than expected. A coalition of 4 alien races, known collectively as the Zergan Concord, had mobilized fleets near the binary star system of Vorith 6. Reports indicated they intended to block humanity's exploration and expansion efforts, claiming humans were destabilizing interstellar balance. The intrepid Horizon was outfitted with experimental stealth systems and adaptive shielding, but even with these, the human crew would face odds that were nearly impossible. The first scouts of the Zergan fleet emerged, sleek, predatory ships capable of weaving through asteroid belts at incredible speeds. Sensors picked up their signature weapons, plasma lances designed to pierce shields in seconds. Everyone listened carefully, Jara addressed her team. This isn't just about firepower. We're outnumbered, yes, but not outmatched. Observe, adapt, and exploit their assumptions. They expect us to fight like others, they expect strategy to follow logic. Humans, we don't do that. Her plan was unorthodox. Rather than engage directly, the intrepid Horizon acted like a phantom, weaving through asteroid clusters, drawing the enemy into traps where gravitational forces, debris, and orbital mechanics worked as lethal allies. Human intuition guided every maneuver. The first wave of enemy ships collided with tumbling debris, shredded by unpredictable gravitational pulls, while Jara's team slipped through unscathed. The Zergan Concord struggled to anticipate a species that didn't just react. They anticipated counter-reactions that didn't exist in any database or combat manual. Triv, ever cautious, muttered, "They're learning faster than any algorithm could predict. They don't just calculate, they improvise." Jara nodded. Exactly. And improvisation, combined with instinct, is humanity's edge. They can't predict what doesn't follow their patterns. As the battle escalated, it became clear that the Zergan Concord had underestimated humans. Entire squadrons were neutralized without a single human casualty. Still, Jara knew the coalition would regroup. They weren't naive, they were ruthless. It was then that Jara revealed the next phase of her strategy, the Human Vanguard Initiative. She had proposed a coalition of willing species, led by humans not to dominate, but to demonstrate a new form of leadership. Adaptability, ingenuity, and ethical strength combined. The initiative was approved. In weeks, a fleet unlike any seen in the galaxy was assembled. Small, highly maneuverable ships, crews trained not only in combat but in environmental adaptation, creative tactics, and human-style improvisation. The first full engagement was set in the Nebula of Whispers, a vast region of ion storms and dense stellar gas. The nebula was nearly impassable for conventional fleets, but humans thrived in conditions that required improvisation and instinct. Conventional tactics are useless here, Jara explained to her assembled allies. We will use the nebula itself as a weapon. It is not chaos, it is opportunity. An opportunity it became. Human pilots, using instinct and observation, navigated corridors of ionized gas that shifted unpredictably. They lured the Zergan Concord into these corridors, where sensors failed and weapons misfired. The environment itself became an ally, highlighting the human advantage, turning the impossible into an asset. During the battle, Jara faced a direct confrontation with Zergan Admiral Krelth, a legendary tactician who had never been defeated. Krelth's ship loomed like a predator, analyzing every move the humans made, predicting and countering with ruthless efficiency. Jara's strategy was bold. Instead of evasion, she allowed her ship to appear vulnerable, baiting Krelth into an overcommitment. Then, in a series of maneuvers that defied physics as the aliens understood it, She turned the nebula's ion storms against his flagship, creating an electromagnetic feedback that disabled his weapons and systems. The moment was critical. Krelth called for surrender, but Jara didn't strike with destruction. Instead, she transmitted a message across the battlefield in both Universal and Zergan languages. Humans win not by annihilation, but by understanding, adapting, and leading. There is strength in survival, in intellect, in ingenuity. Join us or learn from us. It was audacious. It was human. And it worked. Krelth hesitated, then disengaged, signaling a temporary truce. The rest of the Concord fleet, seeing their admiral yield, scattered into the nebula, unable to match the humans' adaptive strategy. For the first time in centuries, a coalition that had considered humans a threat realized that humans were an entirely different kind of threat, a species that could not be calculated, predicted, or subdued through conventional means. The victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Humans were no longer just survivors, they were a vanguard. Word spread to neutral systems, traders, explorers, and even the overseers themselves. The intrepid Horizon and its crew became symbols of human ingenuity and adaptability, proof that the species could survive, innovate, and lead in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Jara, however, knew better than to celebrate too long. Victory was not absolute. It was a temporary state in an ever-evolving cosmos. The Zergan Concord would return, stronger and wiser, as would countless other species. But humanity had set a precedent. They didn't simply fight. They adapted, outsmarted, and inspired allies along the way. Lyran, exhausted but exhilarated, turned to Jara. We've done more than survive. We've changed the game. Jara's eyes scanned the stars ahead. Not just the game. The galaxy. Humans are no longer just participants. We are catalysts. And wherever there's challenge, wherever there's danger, humans will be there. Not to conquer blindly, but to endure, adapt, and thrive. Triv, usually skeptical, finally smiled. You really are unstoppable when you put your mind to it, aren't you? Not unstoppable, Jara replied. Predictable only in one thing: we never stop trying. As the intrepid Horizon prepared to return to the Academy, new reports came in: rising conflicts in distant systems, unknown fleets moving beyond explored space, and intelligence indicating that even the overseers were watching humanity more closely than ever. The galaxy was alive, dynamic, and dangerous. But humans had proven one truth: no matter the challenge, no matter the predator, no matter the environment, humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans prevail. And from the shadows, other forces whispered warnings and admiration alike. The human vanguard has awakened. They are not like us. They cannot be predicted, and they will change everything. Jara, looking out at the swirling stars, smiled faintly. The journey was far from over. But for the first time, humanity stood not at the edge of the galaxy, they stood at the center of its attention. And that, she knew, was only the beginning. The galaxy was changing, faster than anyone had predicted. The news of humanity's victories over the Zergan Concord and their unconventional strategies had spread like starlight through nebulae and wormholes. Civilizations that had once dismissed humans as primitive were now reconsidering alliances, treaties, and even the nature of intelligence itself. For Jara and the crew of the intrepid Horizon, the victories were a validation of centuries of evolution, innovation, and indomitable spirit. But the calm was deceptive. Intelligence reports now suggested a coalition far more dangerous than the Zergan Concord was forming. A coalition of species who had never tolerated human expansion and viewed it as a threat to galactic equilibrium. Lyran stared at the holographic star map, dense with red markers representing hostile fleets. This isn't just a battle. This is an entire galaxy against us. Jara's gaze was steady, eyes reflecting the swirling cosmos projected before them. Not against us, she corrected. Against the possibility humans represent. Every civilization fears what they cannot control. But humans, we don't just exist. We redefine rules. The first challenge of this new era came on the frontier of the Crithian Expanse, a volatile region where stars erupted unpredictably and gravitational anomalies twisted conventional navigation. The intrepid Horizon approached stealthily, scanning for fleets. Sensors picked up multiple hostile vessels converging, each piloted by species who believed that humans were a destabilizing factor in the galactic balance. Remember, Jara reminded her crew, we don't fight like them. We adapt. We anticipate. And when the moment is right, we act, not just to survive but to lead. The battle began with sudden ferocity. Enemy ships employed overwhelming numbers and advanced energy weapons. Entire fleets of humans and allied species were under siege. But Jara had anticipated this. Rather than engaging head-on, she implemented the human convergence tactic, a method that used deception, environment, and synchronized maneuvers across multiple systems. Human pilots, guided by intuition, navigated gravitational eddies, asteroid clusters, and ion storms in ways no alien algorithm could predict. The opposing fleets found themselves trapped, colliding with debris or interfering with each other as they tried to compensate for unpredictable human strategies. It was during this battle that the galaxy first witnessed human ingenuity on an almost mythical scale. In the midst of chaos, Jara faced the leader of the coalition, Admiral Threx, a ruthless tactician renowned for crushing entire planetary defenses. Threx's flagship emerged like a shadow across the nebula, its weapons designed to neutralize conventional fleets. But Jara anticipated his strategy. Using the shifting currents of the ionized nebula, she guided the intrepid Horizon into a hidden gravitational tunnel, an unstable pathway that only a mind willing to improvise could navigate. Threx followed, confident in his calculations, but humans don't follow logic, they transcend it. Inside the tunnel, Threx's flagship was ensnared. Gravitational forces tore at its hull, systems malfunctioned, and the crew panicked. Meanwhile, Jara deployed adaptive drones, each capable of reading enemy maneuvers in real time and feeding data back to human pilots. The drones created illusions, feints, and diversions that left Threx disoriented. Lyran's voice trembled with excitement. We're bending physics, and he can't keep up. Jara's eyes were sharp, unwavering. Not bending physics. Using physics, and using imagination. Humans make the impossible predictable to ourselves, but unpredictable to everyone else. In a decisive strike, the intrepid Horizon disabled the flagship without destroying it, signaling humanity's philosophy: victory without unnecessary slaughter, strength with honor. The aftermath of the battle left the coalition fractured. Many species surrendered or withdrew entirely, realizing that humans were not a species to be dominated, nor destroyed, but a species to be respected, and learned from. Jara sent ambassadors and messages across the galaxy, extending offers of cooperation, shared exploration, and mutual defense. Word of the human vanguard spread to distant systems. Humans became symbols not of war, but of ingenuity, resilience, and leadership in uncertainty. Colonies that had struggled under hostile environments now thrived under human guidance. Star systems previously isolated by fear now joined in alliances, forming a network of cooperation unprecedented in galactic history. But not all threats were external. Some factions within the Academy worried that humans' rise could destabilize galactic politics. Ethical debates raged over whether humans, as a species capable of so much, should wield influence on such a scale. Jara addressed these concerns with clarity. We don't seek control. We seek possibility. We don't dominate. We adapt. We endure. And we invite others to do the same, not because we demand it but because together we can reach heights no single species could achieve. Her words resonated. They reminded the galaxy that humanity's strength was not brute force, but intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to inspire others to rise above fear. As the years passed, humans became central to galactic diplomacy, exploration, and defense. The intrepid Horizon became a symbol of hope and resilience. Human scientists discovered technologies that revolutionized interstellar travel. Human strategists prevented wars and resolved disputes that had persisted for millennia. And humans, ever curious, continued to push boundaries, exploring unknown systems and thriving in environments considered impossible. Jara, now recognized as the first human vanguard admiral, reflected on the journey. From a single trial to commanding alliances across the stars, humanity had proven itself not just capable of survival, but capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one anticipated. Triv approached, smiling wryly. You realize they'll probably call us gods soon? Jara chuckled softly. Not gods. Humans don't need worship. We just endure, adapt, and inspire. That's enough. Lyran added, and we've shown them that unpredictability, creativity, and instinct, that's more powerful than any weapon. Yes, Jara said, gazing at the stars. We are humans, and no matter what the galaxy throws at us, that alone is enough to make history. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not predictable. Humans were a force of nature in their own right, capable of unimaginable resilience, creativity, and courage. From the edge of known space to the furthest reaches of unexplored systems, the whispers spread. The humans, they survive everything. They adapt. They endure. And they will never stop. Jara, standing on the bridge of the intrepid horizon, looked out at the shimmering stars and felt a rare sense of peace. The journey had been long, the battles fierce, but humanity had proven itself. Not through domination, not through fear, but through the very essence of what it meant to be human. Imagination, resilience, and the relentless drive to thrive. And as new stars were charted, new alliances formed, and new challenges loomed on the horizon, one thing was certain: humanity's story was only beginning. The galaxy had been forever changed, not by conquest but by humans showing what it truly meant to survive, adapt, and prevail.